because, goals come out of our purpose. And if you know your purpose, whether you get challenges or adversity, and it goes back to this resilience piece, your purpose broadly remains the same, your why, whatever you want to call it. If you're going to climb a mountain today, you may have a rock that gets in the way or a boulder. Your purpose is still to get up there, so you might have to get more creative, you might have to go around it, you might have to break it down, a whole host of stuff. The how changes and the timing changes, but your overall purpose doesn't change, and it keeps you on track, and it keeps you energized and keeps you focused.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, this is Agostino. When the economy turns, keeping the momentum up to build your real estate business becomes that much more important. This is why you must continue growing your business profitably, leveraging the information you have, and hiring the right people for your team. Well, today's guest understands this. He knows that for many of us, we experience tremendous amounts of change in our personal and professional lives during tough times like we have today. It's in these times that we need to be resilient to giving up and bringing in the talent, the coaches, and the support we need to see our way through to success. Now, he has worked with a number of blue chip companies, giving him a wide exposure of experience to the corporate and entrepreneurial world. Now, as the founder of Julian Roberts Consulting, he and his team coach emerging and senior leaders along with developing leadership programs for organizations. Now, with that, I'd like to welcome Julian Roberts to the show. Hey, Julian, thanks for coming on, bud.
Agostino, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. I think it's going to be great. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Now, if you like what Julian has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at julianrobertsconsulting.com. If you like our content, please don't forget to leave a comment and rate the show. It helps us out tremendously when you do. Finally, text the word freedom to 202-410-4202. You get our free ebook, The Bulletproof Guide to Finding a Broker. Okay, Julian, go ahead and tell listeners a little bit about how you got started in the corporate world.
How did I get started in the corporate world? Well, I was in there for 20 years and I enjoyed it, became, I would say, reasonably successful in the eyes of how we deem success, headed up businesses and teams. But despite all that, I realized actually what was something that really got me buzzing. It was when I saw people in my team, behaviors that I'd coached, got alongside with, actually delivering stuff while I was not there. And in fact, it's what my tag is for my business is unlocking leadership potential. I realized I got more of a buzz out of unlocking somebody else's potential than actually just winning a client or winning a sale. And so that's when I sort of left the corporate world and started to pursue the whole world of business consultancy, and ultimately trained and qualified as a coach. And that's what I do now. And that's what I love, engaging individuals and organizations, helping them unlock that potential and ultimately helping them to thrive as individuals and organizations. So that's what gets excited. And you might need to slow me down and cut me off right now because I will continue to talk about that. But yes, that's what my passion is, really.
No, hey, it's good to have that passion, right? I mean, I personally know from coaching, from being the recipient of coaching and also coaching other people, I understand that buzz. It's really seeing the change in someone's life for the better because of something that you directly helped them overcome, or maybe got to see in a very different light. So, but it sounded like back in the corporate world, I like to refer to it sometimes as the Matrix, right? Because we're living, we're living the 40-hour work week, and you get your 2 weeks of vacation, and you get your fixed pay and all that. And then of course helping some of those folks there, but then eventually seeing your way out of the Matrix to now live life on your own terms. That's a little fascinating. But before we get into that, maybe tell us a little bit about some of that first, the first people you were coaching and then you were helping, and then you saw the germination of things finally changing for them. Like, what was that like, and how did that happen?
Yeah, I guess, I've always had a natural coaching style. So even in the corporate world, I would naturally coach people rather than tell people. I would lead by example a lot more asking questions and sort of listening. And so I knew that was my sort of what I gravitated towards, and having sort of trained and honed those skills sort of through my sort of qualification, really, where I started to realize that those skills honed are even more powerful. But actually, when you are, in front of somebody who may have a limiting belief, or who may have a sense of, confusion about the future or what they do next, and often, you can sort of sit in front of somebody and you sort of know all the answers. You don't really. You might have some ideas, but actually when you start to ask questions and get them to think, get them to reflect, and then get them to sort of go to, I guess, to almost a deeper level of the subconscious, some of the options and the solutions they come up with, generally from my own experience, are things I've never even thought of. And that's the wonderful thing I love about it, because actually I'm not there to tell them what to do. They're there for them to discover, because ultimately, if they've got a goal in mind, they've set that goal, and they've set that goal in a way that their body, their system, their mind knows how to deliver on it. All I'm there for is just to help facilitate that, whether that's to create clarity for them or to unlock any limiting beliefs. And it's just wonderful and a privilege really to get alongside people in that way. And every moment and every time I come off a call with somebody, I'm just ready for the next, and it doesn't tire me out, because it's my purpose. It's what excites me. And it's also a privilege when you see somebody who just gets that aha moment and goes away with something that will give them energy, and they'll deliver on something and do something they perhaps wouldn't have delivered before. So that's what I love about coaching and the one-to-one piece of it all.
Yeah. Now, as far as what you see in terms of limiting beliefs when it comes to entrepreneurs, what is the most common limiting belief that you see? Like for someone that may be, I don't know, struggling, they're having a hard time getting started. Like, well, what's the one that you find that most prevalent?
I think it's, well, the one thing, and I've been coaching some clients recently where it's been a timescale thing. They've always put things into 5-10 years and always put things into the distance. And I had a client recently who had a plan. He was going to do X, Y, Z by 5 years' time. And I just came with a reframe and said, well, what's stopping you doing 18 months? Which he sort of stopped and got a bit, well, nothing really. And it just reframed it. It threw him a little bit. And then he went, actually, I can do it in 18 months. And then he started, and then I said, well, how are you going to do that? And then he started, well, I can do this, I can do that. And he started to then write a plan that was more focused on 18 months as opposed to 5 years. And it was just a bit of a reframe on something where he thought everything has to be far out because that's what you would expect. And I talk a lot about my clients. It's not about looking at other people, but looking at what you can do and just think big, but then think how you can go about it. And I just smashed down that, well, why not? Why can't you do it? There's nothing stopping you. And he just literally, and he's always come back to me and said he's always used that himself of what gets him going. And the other day I was coaching him about something and he was going out again and he went, I don't know, I can do that next year. I can start it at the beginning of the year. And he's just already got that sense of pace. So the time factor, it's almost like it's a sense of procrastination with an element of, I'm not entirely confident, so I'm just going to throw it out into the distance a little bit. And so I just brought it closer than expectation. Why not? And then a reframe that overcome that sort of confidence. And ultimately, it's a confidence thing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I often think too, in addition to the confidence, there's also the human brain. One of its functions is to keep us safe, right? At the same time, too, we want to set up these goals, right? I mean, because that's what we're told to do that, Julian. I mean, you have to set up goals. If you're not setting up goals, clearly you're doing something wrong, right? Well, but I mean, and joking aside, I mean, you have to set up those goals. But the thing is, though, say I'm setting the goals 10 years ahead, and it's so far away. You're satisfying that brain's innate, I guess, function in terms of making sure that we're staying safe because we're taking a risk. I mean, if you're going to go chase down a giant deal, like a $20 million deal, there's an element of risk there. If you fail, you could lose a lot of money. You're losing a lot of time. You could put stress on your relationships at home or whatever the case may be. And, your brain doesn't want that. And subconsciously it attacks us, right? That's many people don't even think of it from that perspective, right? So, but you're absolutely right, though. I mean, in order to get things done, you kind of have to move it up faster, and there's just to your point, when you're talking to that client, what's stopping you from doing in 18 months as opposed to 5 years? There's nothing aside from just, you have to overcome that fear. I think part of it is procrastination and fear. They're a mix of both, it's that.
Yeah. And you're right about the whole, our system, our body, our mind is innately all about survival, and it's all about protecting us in the psychology. That's the reason we do all these things, and why we feel fear things, because it wants to protect you. And the important thing I've learned, and I share with a lot of my clients, is to create a mindset or a sense in your body to get used to change. And I have a bit of a mantra of saying, be comfortable being uncomfortable. And the more you get used to being uncomfortable, when any shock comes to the system, that could be a big challenge or a big adversity or a loss or whatever it may be, you're not so shaken. And I talk about, even the small things, like, instead of walking or running or wherever, how you get to work, if you do go out to work at the moment, is going from A to B, go from A to C, and just start to create some sense of change in your schedule and how you do things. Because the more we get used to change, even small things of things that we can control, like walking to work or walking to the shops, or buying a Americano instead of a latte. It sounds silly little things, but actually the more you do like that, and then start to put yourself in places where you feel slightly uncomfortable, but you've got an element of control, and you'll start to get used to it. And so when you do get a big shock, you don't get so thrown, you don't get so, whoa, what's going on? Because you're already in that place of feeling slightly uncomfortable. I'm not talking stress, I'm not talking anxiety. I'm talking something where you feel a little bit uncomfortable. And it could be that, I'm going to, do some speaking, or, I've never been on a podcast before. And therefore you get yourself on a podcast and go into that sense of slightly controlled, but actually it's a good place to be. And it stretches you, it stimulates you, and creates a position and a mindset of change. And the more you can get into I suppose, almost neural plasticity in your brain, the better you'll cope with anything. And that's the whole thing of resilience. The more you have to cope with adversity and challenge. And, I'm not just talking about a pandemic here. I'm talking about everything in life. There was change and challenge even before pandemic. Yes, the pandemic is huge, but we've always had change, and we always have it. And just because the pandemic at some point will go away, you will always have challenges. You'll always have customers who will let you down, and all as people, sales fall through and people leave you, all that. So create a place where you feel open to change.
Now, Julian, here's the thing though, too, right? To be open to change requires to have a very different type of mindset to do it. And I have to imagine that you've spoken to many potential clients, and then for whatever reason, they decide, you know what, I don't need any coaching. Coaching is stupid, right? There's people that say that out there, right? Yeah. I personally don't agree with that at all. I mean, the coaching has helped me out tremendously. But there's other people that do that. Now, here's the thing though, too. This might be an uncomfortable question. What might be the reason that people don't go through with it? Like, is it a financial thing? Is it some other reason why they don't do the coaching thing? I mean, I believe there's so much value in bouncing ideas off someone, having them challenge your thoughts, really coming up with, working together to come up with a solution, possibly, even though it's not technically what a coach is supposed to do, but it does happen from time to time. But what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, obviously there's always the finance bit, but I think that's just a red herring, really, financially. I think it's people who don't want to invest in a coach. And I talk about it's an investment, and we're meant to be, just as you invest in stocks, just as you invest in real estate, the best investment you can make in your life is in yourself. And whether you do that in a context of reading, listening to podcasts, going on a course, or doing an MBA, whatever it may be, or hiring a coach, it's having that mindset of investment. And the ones I tend to get when I work for some organizations where it's the organization's paying for it and the individual's not, and therefore it's almost they're just getting the coaching as part of the organization, invested in people, which is really obviously important and helpful for well-being as much as helping them develop and transform. But the ones who pay for it themselves, the ones who go, yes, here's some money and let's get off, are individuals who are already in that mindset of wanting to change, wanting to transform, wanting to exploit things in their lives, and know also they've got a self-awareness, not fully self-awareness, they've got self-awareness that they know they don't know it all, and they want to have somebody who they can lean on and bounce off, and somebody who will then take them to a place that they want to go to, but they're not sure surely how. And I think sometimes it's, some people are proud and feel they've got to a level, they've been very successful, and they think, well, I don't need a coach because I've done all this. And I always say, well, how much more could you do? And it's not just about success in terms of financial. It could be more freedom in your life, to have more freedom with your wife or your husband or your children. And it's almost like saying you can actually even be better. And it's not that I've got all the answers. You've got all the answers. All I've got is the skill to be able to navigate you and help you reflect and give you the sort of empowerment to overcome limiting beliefs. And we all need to have help. I also have a coach myself. I have a regular coach who supervises me, keeps me on track, helps me when I think I'm getting stuck with my clients as well. And so as much as I talk about being a coach someday, I get coached as well. So I'm practicing what I'm preaching. And I think it's more about people are proud or people have got a lack of self-awareness, and I think more than anything else. So yeah.
Well, I mean, even Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time, undisputable in my opinion. I mean, even he had a coach, right? And I think what made him different though is that he was coachable. Like he'd listened to what the coaches said. Even the guy that was the best, if the coach noticed something, they would say, you know what, you should do it this way or do it that way, or you should. I'm not a big on basketball, but they would offer their advice, and he took that advice. He listened to the criticism and he applied it.
Yeah.
Right. Let me rephrase that. He didn't listen to it as criticism. He listened to it as something more constructive. Right. So, but to that end, do you find that the most successful entrepreneurs that you might work with, they take that criticism, or do they just defend some of the bad stuff that they're doing? Like how do you see it, and what advice would you give on like making that transition to becoming coachable? Like how would you put that?
Yeah, I have a lot of entrepreneurs who nobody likes being told you're doing something bad, but I will never do that. What I tend to do is I will use questioning and time of listening and sort of helping them reflect, that they start to realize what perhaps they're doing is limiting their opportunities or limiting what they can do. And I might use NLP techniques, which gives them some different perspectives on life as well. And so by their realization, actually they get it. So if I tell you something, most people naturally go, nobody can tell me, and we'll always bolt back. But if you almost put a mirror in front of them in a way that's come from them, they realize, perhaps say limiting belief, or they realize they're not very clear here, then they might go, oh, how do I do that? They might also then reach out and ask. And it's that process I get with my clients where that sort of create that environment that they feel safe. I'm not there to judge them. I'm there for them. I'm the best ally in that moment to really help them succeed. And all I would do is create that sort of self-awareness. And then through that, they then start to step through it. And it's so, because if it comes through from them, then they're more likely to be motivated, more likely to engage with it and go away and do the stuff they need to do, as opposed to me just telling them. Now, it may come to a point where they come up with a number of options. And this often happens where they exhausted all the options they can come up with. And I might just have one or two, and I always say, look, I can share something, but you can dismiss it and everything else, and I will share it, and then they will take it or not take it. And so, but I will always exhaust them, because if it comes from them, it's far better and far more insightful and far more motivating from it. And that's the skill I would do with coaching.
Right. Would you find though that for many folks out there that they come to you asking for help, but maybe they're a little bit tough to coach, they're just difficult to coach. I know you said like you basically you're holding up a mirror in front of them, but some folks require a little more work, right? I mean, especially for people that never had a coach before.
Yeah,
right?
I think I had one recently who he knew he needed a coach. He thought coaching is a really good idea, but didn't really know what a coach did. And
Right.
it sounds silly, but it's not silly really. And I think we had a number of conversations on the phone actually to talk it through. And then I said, well, you need to work out some outcomes. And he found that really difficult, that whole process. And in the first, I suppose, a couple of sessions, there was an element of what I would call not arrogance, but element of he wasn't so sure about all this process. And I could see the sort of reticence. And I had to really just build a rapport with him and to create that environment where he felt safe, he could share. And he was a successful, and in terms of, and he was a bloke, and blokes are a little bit, got a bit of ego, particularly with another bloke, and this is what I've done and all that, which is fine. I know that I'd listen, allow that just to go through, and then he got there in the end, and it was just took some time. And as we went through the process of the questions and the listening, and a few exercises he went away with, he started to see the value of it. And once he started to see the change, he went, okay, I can see something in this. And then he started to engage more when he just saw a little crack of light of value for himself and difference. And in fact, within the second or third session, he came back to me. So I've been talking to my team in the way you talk to me, and started to ask them questions. I was listening more, and I was trying to get along. And he was doing almost mimicking me, but slightly. And so that just took some time, but it took him time actually to go through the process. And that's why often with clients with almost a taster session, which can really help them, because they understand, well, what do? Are you just going to tell me like a football coach, to throw it this way or throw it that way? No, I'm not going to do that at all. And I suppose that's the process really. And he got there in the end, but that did take some time. And that's just building that trust and that relationship really.
I think that's the expectation though, right? For many folks is that they look at it as, oh, you're just like a football coach. You got to throw the ball this way. You got to run around this guy, and you got to do it this X, Y, Z. And that's not what coaching is. And I mean, just to your point, you're using that mirror, so to speak, to really demonstrate, to really challenge yourself, right? To challenge yourself, right? And and you're there to facilitate that challenge. That's the key, I think, for many folks out there, is that what coaching will do for you is just that, right? I mean, there are coaches, like what we do is we'll help people, like say, get into multifamily real estate. We help, we bridge the gap of that knowledge, and we bring them, and we put them rather in front of brokers, in front of lenders, in front of all the people that they need to be successful. We do that already, right? That's stuff that, coaches, I guess sometimes they do, but most times they don't, right? What you're doing is you're trying to expose some of those, I'm not going to call them deficiencies. Well, I guess I am now. Because we all have them. I have plenty of them. Yeah. You're exposing some of those deficiencies in the hopes of trying to make them better, right?
Yeah, and also what I'm doing is I'm not looking at it from my perspective and go, I know where the issues are. By me asking questions and asking, things like, what would you like to have happen? And getting them to a place of what the goal, all I'm focusing on is the goal they've come up with, or the outcome they've come up with in that particular moment, is that's what they want to deliver on. That's what their sort of subconscious wants to do. And as we navigate through that, we then find out, oh, there's a limiting belief, but I don't go into it and try to spot the limiting beliefs or spot anything that's not quite right or some deficiencies. We just go along, and I go in with no sense of judgment. And in a weird way, I sometimes see it as I kicking off a boat, and let's see where it goes. And it sounds like I don't have a plan in the sense of, well, I don't in that sense, because I'm going with my inner wisdom, and I'm going where the client's going, because I'm always where the client's going and where he is at the moment. Because often, from one session to the next session, things can change. I've seen they've had a whole, many days in between that, and things have happened. And then we get to that moment, instead of just picking up like last time, we look at what's happening today and what we do in the moment. And so I do sense myself literally pushing a boat off, jumping in with them. Hey, let's see what we're going to discover today, and how we're going to help you get you to your goal. And that's the wonderful job I do, and that's why I love it. And at times we have moments where we feel we're a bit stuck and it's a bit quiet, and I'm just listening, and there's a moment of silence, and that's okay, because we have to reflect. And then we get those wisdom moments where suddenly we get a breakthrough, and suddenly they get aha moments. They don't always happen every time, but they do happen, and then they move forward. And it's sometimes the process of that, and then also what I often find is, because I've been rummaged around a little bit in their subconscious, a few days later, other things will start to flow, and clients tell me, "Oh yes, I was thinking this, I was writing that down," and other stuff starts to come out of it, and it's wonderful. It's brilliant. I love it. And I say I can coach anybody. Whether in real estate, and I don't know a lot about real estate, I can coach them in the wealth management world, or in marketing, or in advertising. And so it doesn't matter. I don't have to have their expertise, because I'm using them. It's them. It's about them. So that's really important.
Right. Yeah. So, and you touched on this, my next question earlier, but maybe you can start filling this part in, is that what sort of person is or should approach you when it comes to getting some of that coaching assistance? Because I bet there's people out there right now that are probably listening to this. They're like, coaching, whatever. Or maybe they're thinking on the contrary, maybe they could use it, but they're not sure if it's the right thing for them. Like, what sort of person typically approaches you for assistance around the coaching element?
Yeah, in some ways, I'll never sell coaching in the sense of me, because if I have to try and convince somebody, it's not really the right person. So in terms of the person who is basically open and willing to trust me, and that's an element of trust that goes into it, of course, but wants to do some great exploits and great transformations in their own lives and achieve whatever success. I'm not talking about financial always, a successful sort of outcomes. I'm willing to get alongside them, and they're willing to, I guess, have a go at something, because we might be doing things slightly different. I don't have a specific process as such. Sometimes I use what you call clean language coaching, which is very much non-judgmental. Sometimes I go sort of quite specifically go through a grow model. Sometimes I use some NLP techniques. I will go and almost take the tools out of my sort of toolbox, so to speak, what's appropriate at the right time, what sort of inner wisdom is the moment. So I talk about clients being willing to just be open to exploring ways of them overcoming any limiting beliefs or any sense of lack of clarity they may have as well. So that's what I want. And ones who are just willing to work and invest in themselves, because there's no point coming to a session and then not going away, and willing to work and continue to try and change those behaviors as well.
I mean, I think that's the key right there, is that you really have to be willing to put in the work into yourself to build that self-improvement. I mean, that I find as someone who coaches people as well, not to the same, very different than what you're doing, because we're coaching specifically on real estate, but it's very similar in that you're prescribing something, and if it's not being performed, you're going to have a very hard time not only getting the value that you want out of it, but also a hard time getting to the goal that you want. Like, one thing that we do, for instance, is I instruct my students to write out their daily goals, right? They write out the daily affirmations, to be more precise.
Okay.
And they're visualizing what they want in their life. And they're writing it out every single day. Every morning before they begin the day, they're sitting in a dark room with one light on, and they're writing, how they visualize their life. And the intent is to program the subconscious to begin work to deliver those things and pull them into your life. And, you'd be surprised. I mean, I do it every morning, and that's how I was able to do some of the amazing things that I've done, if I should say so myself. but it didn't. But it wasn't by accident. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of risk, and but measured risk, of course. But that's the only way it happens, right? And it's somewhat. It's very weird when you see people that they say they want to hit those marks, but are afraid to put in the work to actually do it.
And that's right. And I say people might look at you and see you're successful, but actually you've gone out to be and done what you're doing. You've not just woken up and suddenly you're lucky. There's no real such thing as luck. I work on the principle you get what you focus on in life. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it's all about, smashing goals and all that sort of stuff, but there's some real psychology, as you said, because it sets, we have a thing in your brain called a reticular activating system, or a RAS in your brain, which filters stuff. We're all consumed with so much sensory stuff. Your brain just can't cope with it. And so it filters according to what you set it. It's almost like an internal antennae. So if you put that antennae to negative past failures, all you ever see throughout your life and day is negative, where you've not succeeded. Yeah, I didn't succeed there. However, if you set it for a future goals, like you're saying, sitting down, writing future goals, positive goals, your subconscious will then pick up things. Right, I want to, get a $20 million project away, whatever. You will be picking up through whether your conversations through the internet, those things will start to come in, and you'll start to notice it and pick it up. And you'll start to focus on those opportunities, those good things, and you start to be more innovative and creative because you've set it to something positive. And that's what I always say to people, you get what you focus on. And that's why goals are really important. We talked right at the start, we talked about goals and outcomes. They are important. They really are important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, listen, that whole reticular activating system scenario, that stuff works. And I mean, even when I think about it, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, because it's like, I've seen it manifest in my life. And you know what, Julian, the thing is that it sounds like a bunch of foo-foo nonsense. That's the problem, right? Because it does, right? It's like, come on. Or the thing about The Secret, the book, I think it was audio as well, or movie or something.
Right.
And people see that and they think, that's a bunch of nonsense. When I first saw it, honestly, I thought it was a bunch of nonsense the very first time I saw it. I was like, whatever. And then I watched it again, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. I actually did it. This is years ago, right? And it worked. And I'm like, holy crap, it actually worked.
It does work. It really does. And just to share, if you don't mind me sharing a personal thing on this.
Sure.
I grew up with a dad who wasn't very inspiring. In fact, he was terrible. So I had no time for my dad at all. And I remember when I became a father, and this is how you can sometimes break cycles in family. So often people, we all do, we always focus on the negative. Oh, I had a rubbish dad, or I had a rubbish, or whatever. We always, and the more you focus on that, the more you then look for that. And I remember, and I didn't know about the sort of reticular activating system then, but I remember focusing on my firstborn happened 23 years ago. And I said, I'm going to be the best father I can be to my daughter and subsequent 3 or 4 daughters. And I'm not saying the best father, but I've got a good relationship with them, very positive, very engaging. And I'm not saying perfect, but I focused on the positive. I didn't say, I'm not going to be like this. I'm not going to be like this. I focused on, and it's a fact. If you focus on stuff, the positive stuff, future stuff, it will start to happen. And it's not just, it's woo-woo stuff. It's real stuff. It's real psychology, real scientific stuff. And it makes real sense. And I've experienced it. You've experienced it. And I would encourage anybody to, get you focus what you get on your goals on, definitely.
100%. And to even take it a step further, this is a good prescription for anybody listening, is that if you're currently in a place right now where things don't seem to be going your way, sit down. Whenever that happens, you sit down and write out your goals, right? Sit down and write them out. It could be 2:00 in the afternoon. You feel upset, you're pissed off about something, you sit down and you write out your goals. Why? Because it reminds you where you're going. It reminds you that things at this very moment may be sucking, but if you write out your goals, it remembers why you're doing what you're doing. I mean, I do this too, man. I mean, there's times when things are not going my way. I'm upset about stuff, or things just aren't moving fast enough. And next thing you know, I sit down, it sort of recenters me, and that's what's done for me. And that it's like, it has helped me tremendously. And to the point where now, it's funny, when I first started buying multifamily, I had what I consider to be a very low goal of 1,000 units. Not only have I surpassed it, I'm hoping to get 900 units in this month. Wow. So it's like that's what I'm shooting for, So it's like, well, I want to try to close out 2020 locking up 900 units. So we'll see if I can pull it off, right? But that's the point. It's kind of like, because I'm trying to pull the future towards me. I want to bring it in. So it requires a very, very different mindset that anybody can do. Anybody can work towards it with the right coaching and with the right person really helping you get to that goal. That's the thing, right?
Absolutely. And it also going a bit, I suppose, bigger than that in terms of deeper, is where we need to get clarity on our purpose. And because goals come out of our purpose, and if you know your purpose, whether you get challenges or adversity, and it goes back to this resilience piece, your purpose broadly remains the same. Your why, whatever you want to call it. If you're going to climb a mountain today, you may have a rock that gets in the way or a boulder. Your purpose is still to get up there, so you might have to get more creative. You might have to go around it. You might have to break it down. A whole host of stuff. The how changes and the timing changes, but your overall purpose doesn't change, and it keeps you on track, and it keeps you energized and keeps you focused. And then out of that, you can then pull out the goals on a daily, weekly basis as well.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Now, if you have, there's someone listening to this right now, and they're probably wondering, maybe they're on the fence about doing coaching. Maybe they're just they're thinking about how to improve their overall life, perhaps. What sort of bulletproof advice would you give them, Julian, if they're listening right now?
Yeah, good question. In terms of, I suppose for me, it's, if you want to grow, if you want to expand your thinking, and you want to see things happen in your own life, which I think we all generally do, is recognizing you need help, and not in a sense of, therapy. You need help, and whether that's, your sort of supportive help, mentoring help, or coaching, you need somebody. And the moment you realize you are not invincible or bulletproof in that context, and you need help, you're in a much better place to exploit opportunities, see opportunities, and see perspectives you've never seen before. And I would always encourage, whether it's coaching, in terms of what I do, or getting a mentor in terms of your own sort of industry you're in, is be open to that sense of change, because you'll succeed far quicker and far bigger with the support of other people around you.
Excellent. And I've seen it manifest in my life too, the exact same way. And that's 100% true. And it totally works. Brilliant. All right, guys. Well, guys, if you want to reach out to Julian, you can reach him via his website at julianrobertsconsulting.com. Hope you got some inspiration in terms of really getting the right coaching and the right help that you need. Everyone needs a little help sometimes. Like I said, I also take part in coaching as well, and it's helped me out tremendously. So I think everybody should at least look into getting a coach or a mentor to help them get to where they want to go. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the Bulletproof Cashflow podcast.